What's wrong with you people?
Welcome to Not Another Baptist Podcast. And remember, all God's people are called to pursue the Great Commission, and that includes you, my friend. And so if you are looking for theological education that includes both academic challenge and hands-on ministry experience, we suggest Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. Whatever theological foundation you need, they'll help you build it. Whatever ministry experience it takes, they'll help you find it. And wherever God calls, they'll help you get there. Whether you're just beginning your journey or have decades of experience, Southwestern Seminary is committed to helping you live your calling. You can learn more at swbts.edu/admissions. Kyle, in a sense, that is communication.
It is.
And recently, as far back as yesterday, we had what we would call a failure to communicate.
Yes, we did.
That led to a humorous text exchange, and so without further ado, and to kick us right off into this thing on effectively communicating Christmas and so forth and whatnot, and every which thing that we may take this direction-wise, why don't you just kind of share what happened?
Yeah, so we're recording this on Thursday morning. So yesterday, Wednesday, I was in sort of your neck of the woods. I was close to you, much closer than I am, say, on a normal basis, right? So I was at a meeting in Dallas. Yeah, I had a meeting in Dallas, and so it was a meeting for association folks, but I was invited due to my role with NAM, and so I knew that you weren't available for the meeting because you already had a couple of other things on there on your schedule. But I had texted you, I don't know, on Monday maybe, and said, hey, are you available? From say 1 to 4. I know you have things going on in the morning, but are you available from like 1 to 4? Because I was thinking you knew I was going to be in Dallas, and if you were available in the afternoon, we could get together, hang out, maybe record our podcast in person, grab some good coffee, um, and I thought I had communicated that clearly because I made some assumptions. Like Matt knows I'm going to be in Dallas. He knows I'm going to be at the Texas Baptist Building, which is within an easy driving distance of you for 45 minutes or so to come over and hang out for an afternoon. And so I never heard back, and then I was like, okay, and then you said, yeah, maybe, let me know. And so I did, and you said okay, and then you send me a text Wednesday that says ETA 1:55, and I'm like, it's about 1:20. Our meeting's like letting out, so I'm like, oh cool, Hensley will be here in like 30 minutes. Turns out, as you said, we had a failure to communicate because you were not thinking, hey, I'm gonna go pick up Kyle, and we'll go hang out in the afternoon. What were you thinking that was all about, Matt?
I was thinking we were doing what we normally do on Wednesday that I was afraid that we were unable to do because you were out of town and you had planned to go back and be available to do so. And that is what we're doing right now, record a podcast episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking back. You said Monday, it was Tuesday, small detail. And nowhere in it do you talk about like where we can hang out or anything like that. I just said I've got coffee in the AM lunch at noon, and you said how about like 1 to 4, and you said something about a meeting, but I'll have all afternoon if you're available. And I'm thinking the entire time you're talking about this, what we're doing right now.
Recording a podcast.
We're just
on
going to
Zoom.
hang out and have coffee. No, which could have been an easy addition into your text message, but no, and yeah, I'm just watching it kind of play out, and you said yeah, I said the ETA thing. We're wrapping up here now. What does your afternoon look at? And again, my mind is completely and totally on. I need to be where I can get my computer, open up Zoom, and do this magic that we are doing right now. And so then I start seeing where this begins to change. You're like, Jesperson, that's the DOM at Dallas, says you
Yep.
should drop in on the AMS meeting. And I said, the what? And you said, come up to 12 when you get here. That, even when I saw that, it still didn't click. I'm thinking you sent that to somebody else, or what. I don't know what's happening there. And I'm like, nothing but question marks. And you said Jesperson, Ellis, and a whole bunch of other AMSs are here. And I said, I just don't get it. And you finally said, come to floor 12 at the BGCT building. And that's when it hit me. That's when I finally realized we were talking about two completely different things. And I sent all caps, I am not there. Someone has to work. And you said ETA 155. And I said, to where I can record, you dolt. so so
And I
yeah.
think at that point I called you and I was like, that because at that point I was like, that's when it finally clicked with me that, oh, we are on two completely separate uh levels here, completely separate things. So
Yes. Well, unless your church has a bunch of Orthodox folks that celebrate Christmas after Christmas Day until Epiphany or whatever, this is a time where communication is key during the holiday season because there are a million things that go on. There are
yep.
parties for all of the Sunday school classes or small groups. There's, the music ministry is going to have their little potluck, and the youth group's going to have their little, I don't know, Christmas lock-in, and the pastor's going to have a staff party, and there's all these other things, including your children's program, your Christmas cantata, your handbell holiday extravaganza, and of course, your Christmas Eve service. Now, that one is pretty easy, right? It is in the name. Christmas Eve. The other ones, of course, have other days with it, but on Lifeway Research, there was an article that they kind of put together on some research that came out that noted that Christmas Eve has the highest attendance for more churches during the holiday season. Now, some of that, of course, I was like, obviously, because they had it listed as the first week of December or before, the second week of December, third week of December, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, first week of January. And I was like, well, obviously, because a lot of people generally aren't going to have their entire families coming to stay with them on the first week of December. And then, of course, like I said, many of us are not really thinking Christmas between Christmas and Epiphany. So that's not really a thing. So I was like, well, obviously, but it's still, especially with our failure to communicate yesterday and this week in general, I thought this would be a great time to make sure to remind our listeners to make crystal clear your Christmas calendar for your church. And so that includes effective communication. And you said something before we went live. Communicate it as much as possible. And then when you think that you have communicated it well, communicate it one more time or something like that. Tell us why that's kind of important.
Well, because for most pastors and church staff, you've been talking about these things far longer amongst yourselves than you have been talking about them in front of the congregation, more than likely. So, in some cases, I mean, I know churches that'll go back and, I mean, they'll start planning Christmas activities in the summer, maybe in the early fall. And so at this point, you've been talking about stuff for months. You have it on your calendar, but a lot of those things are probably just now coming in front of your people. And even if, there's a running joke, somebody walks up to you on a Sunday morning and says, I didn't know this thing was happening today. And the response is, it's in the bulletin.
Yeah.
Been there for months. Here's the thing. You have to assume that people are not reading the bulletin. All right. You have to assume that people are not paying attention during the announcements on Sunday morning. Should they be? Sure. Should they read the bulletin? Sure. Do they? Probably not. And so just assume that your people don't know what's going on. So take multiple forms of communication to get those things out, right? For if you have a church-wide, like potluck, if you have something like an angel tree ministry, the shoeboxes are over and done with. So if you miss those, I'm sorry, you got to hold on to them until next year. At this point, stick them in the flower room. and they'll be preserved until next year. Um, but I mean, through social media, through email, if you use a service like Text in Church, make sure that you're communicating those things over and over and over again because someone will have missed it, right? Somebody's going to come in late to the service and miss the announcement time. They're not going to get a bulletin on Sunday morning. So I mean, by the time that you're sick of hearing about these things, for a lot of your people, they're probably just going, "Oh yeah, that's happening this week, isn't it? Like, I should sign up for that thing." Um, and even if you think you communicated clearly, it's probably a good idea to have someone else look over that and just ask them, "Hey, did it? I know what I'm trying to communicate here. Are all the details here?" Again, if you make assumptions, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Like I assumed you knew I was coming to Dallas, and when I said, "Hey, what are you doing that afternoon?" I assumed you would know. Hey, Kyle's in town. We should get together in person. That would be fantastic. That was obviously not what happened as we were talking around each other and
Yeah.
missing what the other one was very clearly thinking. So communicate clearly and repetitively over and over and over again. And if your folks come up and say, "Why? I don't know why on earth you're still talking about this. We know that this thing is happening." You've done your job because they know it. That's not that is a win, right? That is a feature, not a bug. If your folks are like, "Yes, we know," stop talking about it.
Yeah. One tip that I'll give is sign up right now if you haven't. Most pastors that I know kind of have, but sign up if you haven't for Canva. Just go to canva.com,
Yes.
canva.com. We're not sponsored by them or anything like that. That would be nice. And they even have a professional mode that has a number of many more backgrounds and capabilities and so forth. And you can very likely get that for free because they have a nonprofit program where you submit some information about your church or whatever organization. But even if you have the free one, you can pull this off. Make a graphic, right? That, like a Facebook, and they even have pre-built sizes. So like a Facebook post or a Twitter post or what, just pick one. It doesn't really matter. And on that one, theme it, whatever it is, Christmassy, Christmas at not another Baptist church, right? So whatever you want to put at the top, and then have those key dates on there. The Christmas cantata, December 4th, the children's program, December 11th, Christmas Eve candlelight service, December 25th or 24th, Christmas Day worship, December 25th. Have all of that on there. And then share the mess out of that and use that as kind of the driving picture that you're putting on social media and in your emails and all of that. And then as one of those events happen, just go back into Canva, maybe put a red mark through one of them and maybe a circle around the next one. Coming up next, our Christmas choir concert, whatever it may be, start sharing that one. Then the Christmas Eve. The other thing you can do is make these events very visitor friendly in the sense of you kind of giving opportunities for your members to share these events with other people. And so for example, if you take that exact same file, you can copy it and make a new one and maybe just delete the three other dates, make the other one kind of in the center, and then print it and print several copies, cut them up or have them made, whatever, postcard, whatever, and say, hey, as you go shopping, as you go to school, as you go to work, pass these out, give these out to folks, give them chances to do that. And then have all of those, each of those events, have one made for each of them and start sharing those out there. Because one, you're reminding them along the way of this event without just sounding repetitive. You're kind of tweaked the kind of the pool there. And then also you're turning it into an outreach event.
Yeah.
And so this is a time where everybody and their dog, even the most lost person around us, knows that it's Christmas. You can't turn on the radio. You can't go to Kohl's department store without knowing that it's Christmas because Mariah Carey is going to tell you that all she wants for Christmas is you. And you as a church is saying all we want for Christmas is you too. And so here's how we're trying to tie that in. So everybody's thinking about it. You're just kind of leveraging that for the gospel. And so then the second part of that communication is making sure whether that is, we're not going to debate whether or not you should have a Sunday morning Christmas concert or whatever it might be. We're not going to talk about that. But if you do, or whatever you do for Christmas, make sure that the gospel is clearly communicated. Even if it's a short Christmas story and reminding them that, God loved you so much that he sent this Jesus to live a perfect life for you, to die a sacrificial death for you, to rise again victoriously for you, and will one day come back for you or welcome you home if you turn from your sins into him in faith. That's the true message of not just Christmas, but every day, because God loves you, and he loves you so much that he gave us Jesus. And so making it crystal clear, simple, and compelling to make sure the gospel is throughout each of these events that you continue to communicate. Kyle, what else?
Yeah, and I would say, the communication piece. You touched just a bit on Christmas Day, which of course is a Sunday this year. So if you don't have that clearly marked on your calendar, you should do that right now. The Christmas Day is Sunday. Um, I, I know a lot of churches are making, just schedule changes for that day. Maybe they're not doing Sunday school; they're just doing a worship service. Maybe you're doing 2 or 3 worship services where you would normally only have one. Um, Again, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, it gets crazy in people's lives with family coming in, with family Christmas stuff. So again, make sure that you have those plastered everywhere, especially if you have like an abnormal schedule, right? So here at Highland, we're not doing Sunday school. We're just doing our 10:45 worship on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And so if for some reason there's not Sunday school, man, make sure that you very clearly communicated that. Um, and and then yeah, make it easily shareable, right? So you mentioned the calendar on Canva. I absolutely agree and echo that. Get Canva. I would say like whatever that graphic is, post it, pin it to the top of your Facebook page, so that if somebody goes to your church's Facebook page, that's the first thing that they're going to see is this schedule with all of your Christmas stuff on there. Because you want to make that as easily shareable as possible for the folks in your community to see it, so that you have the opportunity to celebrate Christmas with them and ultimately share the gospel.
Yeah, good word, man. The other thing to remember too is I want to be careful here. The line I think about preaching, that there's a fine line, between, a sermon and a hostage situation. I think that's it. Remember that, especially during Christmas. This isn't the time for your 55-minute sermon. This is the
No.
time to share the Christmas story, get to the gospel, and ultimately send them on their way. And there's no magic number of your Christmas Eve service needs to be 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. There's no real magic number there. It obviously needs to be long enough that it's worth their time getting, out of the house and up there. But, a lot of time is going to be spent passing out the candles, making sure that Bart Barber doesn't burn down the church again, all that kind of stuff. But this isn't the time to show off your oratory skills. This is the time to show off how quickly and how compellingly you can get to the gospel, share it, and just bless them as they go home, encourage them to enjoy that time with friends and family. And the same thing is true on Christmas. It falls on the Lord's Day. I think Kyle and I are on the same page here that it's the Lord's Day. We gather for worship, but that's also the day not to probably prolong it. Be normal. Don't get cute with it and try and overcompensate for the churches that don't, like, hey, look at us. We're going to have a 2-hour service because all these people are. Don't do
Yeah.
that. And I don't think many people will, but just use those as a time to encourage, lift them up, be thankful. And we've talked about this before, that it's easy to kind of disparage the Christmas and the Easter Christians that just come on those Sundays, but you never know. That might be the time that they come back and they stay, and so give them a reason to stay. And that's probably not an Amazon gift card. That's probably a clear communication of the gospel, and maybe even use that as a time even for an invite for what's to come in the new year. Hey, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad you came and would spend your Christmas Eve with us, or your Christmas Day with us. But we do want to let you know that in the new year, we're going to start a sermon series on blank and have this or that, just a real quick, note, and then send them on their way and bless them during that time. So the main message here today, we want to keep it simple. But we just want to remind you that this is a great opportunity where everybody and their dog is thinking about Christmas. And so let's leverage that and clearly communicate when things are happening, and communicate it often and well, and then trust God with the results. Maybe you don't have the greatest attendance on Christmas Eve because families went to another set of family members, whatever it may be. It's not a big deal. Your identity is not in how many come to Christmas Eve or whatever, but this is a chance where you might have a bunch of people and share with those bunch of people, however many bunch of people God sends you, the good news of Jesus Christ. Kyle, any final words before you send us out?
No, I think you touched on it right. Keep it simple. Sing Christmas carols, sing Joy to the World, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Away in a Manger, Silent Night, stuff people know. Read the Christmas story, share the gospel, make it simple, keep it short as short as possible, and bless them as they go to celebrate Christmas with their families. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
All right. Well, may your coffee be as black as night and more clearly communicated than Kyle and Matt Hensley's conversation on trying to get together yesterday to record a podcast or just hang out, right? So We love you guys. Have a Merry, Merry Christmas.
What's wrong with you people?